Hey, check, 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 check. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me in the back? Yeah? Okay. Greg, you're gonna have to come up here at some point, just so you know. Hi, good evening, and welcome. I'm Zach Pozner, Director of Architecture from the University Architects Office. Welcome to the second lecture in our series. The theme of this year's lecture series is composition. Composition in architecture is of paramount importance as it serves as the foundation for creating visually harmonious and functional spaces. The arrangement of elements such as form, color, texture, and scale within the design significantly influences the overall aesthetic appeal and user experience. Ultimately, the careful consideration of composition ensures that architecture transcends mere construction, becoming a form of art that engages and enriches the human experience. I want to thank the rest of our spring lecture series team, Dave Lennox, Krista Van Hove, and Padma Kuditipudi from the University Architects Office, as well as Ethan Woods and Jeffrey Tuttle from the Sustainable Architecture and Engineering Department. I'd also like to thank the AIA Santa Clara Valley chapter for their help in advertising the series and registering our program for continuing education. Please sign the sheet by the front door up there to make sure you get your CE credits. Our next lecture is in 2 weeks, and we are pleased to have Kate Orff from Scape Studio. It will also be held right here at ChemH Neuro at 6:30 p.m. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Greg Faulkner. Greg was raised in Gary, Indiana, and studied at Purdue University, where he earned an associate in applied science and industrial illustration technology. I never heard of that major, but it sounds really fun. He then worked as an aircraft design engineer at Cessna Aircraft in Wichita, Kansas. It's a very logical progression to being a great architect, right? In 1983, he returned to school at the University of New Mexico and earned his bachelor's in arts and architecture, along with Alpha Rho Chi Medal in 1983. And then in 87, he earned a master's of architecture from MIT and was awarded the Francis Ward Chandler Prize for Design. Greg formed Faulkner Architects in 1998 with a desire to build carefully crafted, site-sensitive, and tactile environments. He carefully considers the landscape, limits site disturbance, and chooses materials and methods that reflect the existing conditions and resources of each location. The office remains as it began, with Greg as the single principal who guides the design process for each project. A small staff works out of 2 offices, both in Northern California, one near Lake Tahoe and the Sierra Nevada mountains, and one in San Francisco. The work of the practice exists along a varied range of typologies, including master planning, hospitality, institutional, and private residential. The firm has garnered a wide range of professional recognition, including AIA California Council Residential Honor Awards for Creek House in 2016 and Minor Road in 2017. Creek House also received a 2016 House of the Year Award from LEAF, Residential Building Single Occupancy. Regularly published, the firm's work has appeared in print and online in GA Houses, Architectural Digest, El Decor Italy, Design, Architect, Curbed, Corriere della Sera, Architectural Record, Dwell, Wallpaper, Sunset, Lux, Architettura e Disegno, and Enki, among others. I think that was all of them. I don't know what the others are. I saw him in Sports Illustrated once. And now let's please give a warm welcome to Greg Faulkner. Yep. Just a little button up top.
How's that?
Great.
Well, hello. Thanks for coming. This is a great crowd. Thank you for inviting me, Zach, and to the School of Architecture here at Stanford. Really honored to be here and happy to show some work and talk about this theme. I do have a minor confession. We don't actually talk about composition in practice.
That's every lecture, so don't worry about it.
But we know that the work communicates as a composition when it's completed. We just think that it must be earned. The composition must be earned. And that's through all the things we all know, response to the site and the client and the program and our situation in the world and with climate change. So from that, we assemble really materials, and space is kind of the big thing out of everything that you suppose in space is if you don't have that. And I think we chose this house just because of the spatial nature of the main space there. This is in Lake Tahoe, and I'm not really talking about it too much, but never really drew this in terms of looking at it as a composition. I won't say that again. At any rate, let's see if we can start switching. So there's about 10 projects, and the first 5 are kind of what's going on in the office right now. So I thought that'd be fun to see kind of what we're thinking about. And then the last 5 are more completed projects and a few that you have not seen yet. We have recently been working to do smaller projects as well as our larger ones. And so is it working? There's this red button.
Just have the touch screen there.
Oh.
Yeah,
Is it working?
sorry about that.
The news is we just opened an office in San Francisco in Jackson Square on the corner of Barrett and Jackson, and we're super excited. It's an old bank space, so it's 2 stories. And here's where it's located. Close to the restaurants, close to the water. We have some friends in the world, in the architectural world, and Rick Joy is one of them. And I've worked with his wife, Claudia Joy, and she's done lighting and interiors on several of our projects. And when they heard that we were opening an office, they told us that one of the early projects by Rick was being kind of dismantled, the Godet studio in Tucson. And they asked if we would like to use it. And so we purchased it and brought it to San Francisco, and this guy's name, Jenna knows, but by the way, half my office is here. Right back, supporting me. My son's here. So they let me know that this was available, and so we kind of jumped on it. And this guy actually installed it originally 30 years ago, and so he drove it up in a truck, and both these guys. Next stuff, all steel, glass tops, but we appreciate the story. So stop and see us. It's our first project, Soo Creek in Capitola, and I'm sure you're all aware of the flooding that happened recently. And so this creek rises, and this water is up here during the flood surge up there. And so some friends of ours actually asked us to do this, and we're really having a good time with it. There's the location. And the creek is dammed off from the water in the summer, but then it's open in the winter, obviously, to allow the drainage. Early sketch trying to solve the water problem while still remodeling the building. So we didn't design the building. And so this is a section showing the space under being reclaimed. Here, the original house was here. This is the garage. Using that space for territory. And we were inspired. This is actually a AI generated, but the pier at Capitola was, a driver, and so you can see the piers here, a courtyard, and the garage. This is the garage. So there's the water line, and we took the lower floor and moved it and made a bridge out of it. So here's the diagram. It's going to extend now. So we're going through the entitlement process right now with the city. The water storage. So we connected the upper level of the house and lowered the level and connected to the upper level of the garage and created one green space. See how high this is a FEMA determined water line, elevation 20. And There it is with some water, but obviously the water can get to the bottom of the foundation. There's the before. There it is after. Looks really odd to me compared to the angle, yeah. So very light materiality and acoustics, but yeah, that's a fun one. Should start construction there this year sometime if we get through the city. Park City. It's a new project we just started, and it's the Barrett house built in, I don't know, 125, 150 years ago. And there's the 3 stages. The first one is the oldest photo we could find. And then here's the progression of how it's been changed. And we're performing sort of a historic preservation on the cabin. So we're really trying not to design. It's putting it back the way it was a long time ago. So we're scraping through the paint, find original colors and original siding patterns. And then the client has asked us to add an ADU on a very tight site. And actually it goes right, oops, it's not working. Goes right there, the ADU. Some sketches, and we thought of it as a way to, speaking of composition, leave the existing house as it was, and bring it back, and then build a shed out back for the ADU. And then we're re-inhabiting the house, and we're raising it 2 feet and building a basement, which is a common thing in Park City for these old houses, and then inhabiting that zone. The plan. Lower floor. Rendered elevations. So in that upper right-hand corner, this neighbor is very concerned about their view. And so we could be way up here. We dropped the mast down for them so they could see their view. There's a section. That's really awesome. And there it is, finished in the fabric. And I'm really enjoying, we're getting into more building in a fabric. So that's a lot of fun actually. This is here in the city in San Francisco, Noe Valley. We're a three-peat client, and we actually worked on this house with the client. I think John Maniscalco was working on it at the same time. So we had kind of a fun exercise there without knowing each other. But this house next door is the one that we redesigned. That house is from, I don't know, 150 years ago, 100 years ago, but it's been remodeled so many times. There's no history left. So it's zoned as a 2-family house, and we're keeping that. There's a series of sketches showing how we approached it. Roof plan. So the lower floor is for the smaller unit, and it has access to the garden and to the garage. And rare to San Francisco, it has a pool, but it's in Noe Valley, so it's sunny and warm. Here's the main level, and we explored the idea of a bay window, but we used it as a planning device, and it actually moves. It earns the form all the way through the plan there, so it's not sort of the typical kind of bumped on bay window scheme in upper level sleeping. So, my son Garrett prints these for us, and he prints at Microsoft as well, and does this for us as his side hustle. It's really useful. We do wood models, but they take a lot of time and cost a lot of money. And this is almost a rapid prototyping type of situation where we can print crit and keep printing, keep iterating on it. This is, so we're getting out of town now and we're doing larger projects. This is Long Bay and about 2 hours south of Ottawa, and it's actually pretty close to the border, Canada. But Long Bay is it's an old camp, and there were existing buildings there. And on these lakes, they're so interconnected. Here's the location. There's so much water here that you can literally summer or winter travel on the lakes. And so people do it by boat in the summer and snowmobile in the winter, and then they stay at various places. And this will be one of those places. And this is being built for a home builder in Canada. It started off as a project for their staff, but now it's become, I think, more than that. It'll be available to the public. So here's, so it's a large parcel, and the whole master plan was already done when we got here, but we reviewed it, tweaked it, and tuned it a bit. But it's going to have greenhouses and a garden and be somewhat self-sufficient. But there's two sites. This is elevated, and then this goes down to a second site down here, and then there's cabin sites along here. So there's existing cabins from the original camp counselors that they kind of built, but they're disturbed, and so we're trying to use those, all the disturbed places, to build new buildings. Site analysis in our office is super important, and it's what drives the composition. So responding to the context and the wind. This is a wind rose right here, and you can see the winds coming out of the west. And then these are gradient contour studies so that we can locate the buildings in the most gradual slopes, and then obviously a sun diagram. Early sketch. And this is the two pieces of the project, and this is the way down. There's this is on the Canadian Shield, and there's rock, solid rock, about 3 feet below grade. And much of it becomes visible on the surface. And so there's this granite chunk that rolls down to this piece. And so we use that as our driver to get from here to there. Early section. We're starting to finalize the site plan. So there's a hotel, small hotel, and then the lodge for meeting and dining, and then 7 cabins. The great rock right here, big, and we're building a little dock around it. So as you know, they had terrible fires in Canada last year, and so this building is meant to be fire resistant. So the exterior materials are Corten steel and concrete. There's a, oops, funicular, if I can get this to work, funicular that travels down the slope and parallels that rock along with a stairwell to get from here to there. Simple shed forms following the slope of the land. 1 story. Like to enter around the privacy, so we're entering around this boulder to get to the entrance. Screens. We're using Spearhead out of BC to pre-manufacture the parts of this building, so the roofs will all be pre-assembled and shipped to site. I have a kit of parts. Cabin's site plan. Really excited about this one. So we're just starting permit process for the cabins right now. This is a house in Pine Flat up by Healdsburg in the hills, and it burned, and all that was left was the foundation. And our favorite type of client, these are scientists from Genentech. Super hip, cool people. It's really fun. And they lived here 30 years before the fires finally took their house. And a fire had taken the previous house on this site. So this is the third house. And we're hoping this one's not going to burn because we worked hard to not do that. So the fun thing about this one is we saved the foundation and then we just dropped a shed on top. And it's kind of like stepping on a leaf. And so the pieces that stuck out, we used for things. So there's a front step, and there's a skylight to the basement and things like that. And there's the foundation. Cut this little piece off. I try to use it all, but that one piece just was in the way. So it was one of those pit house plans, kind of a chevron facing the sun with no shade protection, so it cooked. So here's an early sketch of the shed being dropped on along with a garage form in one of those ears that stuck out. The other one got cut off right there. Here's a diagram to show how that shed drops down. Lower level. So that's a wood shop on the left, and the serious woodworker, and then that's a weaving room in the middle, number 2. So that's full of looms and so forth, and then a couple of bedrooms. We value engineered out that chimney, luckily. So this will be finished in July. Here you can see some of those pieces, kind of, that's going to be a skylight. And you can't see the step down here. And then here's the garage piece that's sticking out too. Our client and Jag, one of our architects who's here. So you can see in this image that the old foundation, the ceilings were too low. So we had to float the second floor above that to get those ceilings up to standard. We love this image just because the roof line follows the slope of the land. So this one, instead of opening to the hot sun, it closes down and it's got a brim on it like a hat. Sun's even cooperating in this photograph to show you how the rays work. And it looks out to this beautiful view, obviously. So this one's meant not to burn. There's shutters coming for these doors that slide along here. And then this is all steel, of course. This is all existing concrete, and that's an existing opening. And then it folds back, and this part cantilevers out, but it's supported by a new concrete chimney that's colored dark, so you can tell the difference between the old and the new. Okay, finished houses. This is one in Tahoe that we have not published. And this was actually in addition to a client's house from about 2008. And right before the pandemic, they asked for a place where they could go and stretch out and play games with family and have people over and connected to it. And they even asked for the bridge. They wanted the bridge connected to their house. Here's the main house down here, and you can see I'm playing with angles. So this faces, this is east and west, and this is the south face of the building. So it's elongated along that axis, and it's glazed on the south side to absorb the sun. So we're really in an editing mode on our plans and enjoy crafting the plans and using the least amount of demarcations to generate the plan as possible. This is the main level. So on the west, there's a screen porch for cooking outdoors and eating outdoors. And on the right, there's the right of the plan, there's a exercise room. And in the middle is the game area. It's the finished building. Perforated steel rain screen, pre-finished. The kitchen that started out as a bar before this turned into a full ADU, you could take this bridge away and this building would function as a separate house. We located the bar kitchen at the end of the bridge to have that activity at the end of the bridge for people to see from the house and come down and join the party. The whole thing opens up quite a bit, as you can see on the left. The rain screen hinges open to receive the bridge. And then the bridge forms a cover, a rain cover, snow cover for the entrance door to this building. So the materials are scoria concrete, which is basically volcanic aggregate mixed into the concrete, and then we sandblasted it. And cedar, which is native to the site, and basalt, which is also native to the site. Here's a close-up of some of that materiality. The bedrooms are on the lower level, and the north side is 2 stories. Concrete is in with you. So the shuffleboard got its own window for daylighting. The roof structure is double blue laminated beams to make them smaller. And then the ceiling and wall is tight knot cedar spaced with acoustical rock wool behind to cut down on the noise from the games. We have to leave the screen doors open and the screen porch because the bear rips them off. So he's allowed in and whenever he wants. Yeah, fun project.
That metal side.
Metal on the outside. Yeah, it's perforated steel, pre-finished. I think it came from Belgium, actually. We use a lot of weathering steel, but some clients just do not like that feeling in their projects. It doesn't feel clean to them, or it feels like it's, you know, corroding or something. So this client wanted a finish. Creek House. This is one of our first houses coming out of the recession of 2008. And it's for a cool family. The client was David Ho, who was famous AIDS researcher back in the 80s. And he was actually Magic Johnson's physician. But we both went to MIT, and so we kind of hit it off. And when we walked the site, the only thing he said was, "Can we not harm the boulders?" Which, as an architect, not right. It's about as much direction as we'd like. So the Martis Creek runs right through here. You can see the darkness, and this is Lookout Mountain at North Star, and then the house follows that direction. A little process, and one of the reasons I show this is just because, and for students, you know, when you do a project, a lot of people get involved, but there's a time in the beginning when it's just you and the client. And so this is one of those early discussions with myself about what we're doing and how we're going to do it and who we're going to work with, and just, you know, random notes. Prefer to show the sketches where it's there's always this one sketch where you kind of feel like, I think I got this. This is going to work. And this is one of those. And so it's showing the sun and the wind and long direction and in section. I'll show you some more. And then we go into a series of sketches, a lot of sections. So one of the interesting things about this house is, we often talk about where things come from as architects and what drives us and so forth. And so I think most architects do this, but I do it. I look at everyone and everything. And one of my friends, actually the builder that built this, John Cordes, was building a house on Lake Tahoe by Boland Sminsky Jackson. And he asked me to walk through it with him when it was finished. And they had done this detail where you could open a shutter. It was a kind of a long, thin house, and you could open a shutter in each room, and it would allow air to move through the house, and you could look through. And if you wanted to be private, you could be away from it, but there was this little zone that just followed along through the house, and it really impressed me, right? So I was designing this house at the time, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we had one of those, but you could actually use it and move into it. And so that's this space right here. It stretches along this whole thing. And so we started the project by laying down a long insulated concrete wall and then registered into it all of the use spaces. And when I was at MIT, we studied with a Dutch architect, John Brocken, who he's wrote a series of books, but one of them was about zones and margins. And it is what you would think it is. So the zone is like a habitable zone, and it's got a different shape, and a margin is the edge or the access. And so here's this is a tandem double loaded garage because I just couldn't see two garage doors with this building. So you can move through here and back out. And then here's a margin between that zone and the house, and it contains the entry and the mudroom and the laundry. And then this access space actually moves down to the lower level. You can come around here and onto a glass floor and see the boulders below. But it stretches all the way through the primary bedroom and into rock garden. He was raised in Taiwan, and he requested some things that were familiar to him. And one of those things was a rock garden. We did two. So we made this form, the concrete ground form, and then we made a framework and we displaced it over to here and earned a rock garden here. And this wall privatizes the house from the neighborhood that's around here. And then this part of the framework cantilevers out over the boulders, and there's another rock garden under there. There's a water element, and they had asked for kind of a functional water feature, and I just doing those in freezing conditions, it's just challenging, right? And you're going to heat this thing all winter just to see it. And so we made a kind of ephemeral water element that drains snow from the roof right there and rain, and it drops into here. So when there's weather, it fills and it wraps all the way around back to the living area. Here's the biggest boulder on the site. And you come around.
Is that the insulation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's 2 8-inch walls. This is a good reference right here. 2 8-inch walls with the space between for insulation. You get the mass inside, but you also get kind of the inside of this thing that's like the outside. So you don't have one thing that you're experiencing from the exterior, and then you walk in and it's a different world. Glass floor over this boulder, and I have to tell you, there's been a lot of glass floors, and I didn't think it was that big a deal, but doing a glass floor over unconditioned space where it freezes, a little bit different story. So that turned out to be a 5-pane glass floor. But one thing you might want to notice, again, I'll try and bring up compositions.
Thanks.
But This is intentionally very carefully located, not to be on top of the boulder, but on the edge. So you get this kind of drama and energy of stepping off the boulder when you're upstairs. Here's the second rock garden. There's a tatami room downstairs, and they actually sleep on the floor. They have 2 bedrooms, and then the kids and the secondary family that comes, everyone gets a futon and they sleep together downstairs. These are very simplistic details, and we went through a lot of shop drawings with the manufacturer who made this floor. So there's that zone I was telling you about that runs all the way through the house. And it's multiple stories. So there's stairs down, go under the glass floor to the bedrooms, and then in the primary bedroom, this is the study upstairs, and there's 2 doors here that close that off or open it for ventilation and privacy.
Could you just say that again?
Yeah, it's pretty fun because when you're in the study, and if you walk over to this edge, there's only a glass rail there. So when you open the door, it feels fully like you're going to fall. So the other rock garden, this wall protects you from the neighborhood. And then in this room, we left it dark and dropped this sort of 3-dimensional window that's carved into the space so that you get this relationship between the bed and the ground and the rock garden. And these were reclaimed from the site, and we placed them. The water falls from there through a grate into the water, it goes around. So a super elongated east-west axis, so the east and west ends are very small, so they don't take on too much heat gain. So on this side is 1 story, and on the back side is 2 stories. So this side is very closed. This is the garage and screened. So this is very private from the neighborhood and very open to the other side. And that is the moon rising, full moon, which is nice that day. Maybe 100 feet. Close enough to be a problem if you don't like the house, especially. So I actually did compose that. So this is a square, and the client hired a feng shui master to come and check the house. And one of the things that they said was, "You have no circles." And I said, "I know." So they wanted some circles. So I leaned on one of my mentors, Scarpa, and did kind of an intersecting circle plan and made them very small. They wanted the big thing. We said, "No, we're not doing that." But, this is composed by strike and diagonal between there and there, a 45-degree angle, and that's sitting on that diagonal, so it stabilizes it. And one of the things we talk about in the office is dimensional stability, makes things feel calm and stable. The other interesting thing about this image is all of that landscape is existing. So we were really super careful with disturbance, but then we also salvaged the plants and so forth from the footprint, and we kept them alive during construction with sprinklers, and then used those. There were no new plants brought to the site. Only plants that were salvaged were used to kind of repair the damaged grade areas. Minor Road, this is in Orinda, and that's Roland, and he's probably a teenager now. And we went up on the roof of this old house, and it was a very hot day, and we were sitting under the shade of the big oak tree, and we were starting to measure how far the shadow went on the roof to talk about shading and so forth. So this is the house, and they actually own all of this, which is an outsized piece for this neighborhood. And this is an amenity for the neighbors to look at, right? And so no one wanted to see a house up here. So we started this as a remodel, but as hard as we tried, the foundation was no good, the soil was no good. And so in the end, it's still technically a remodel because we saved the fireplace, but it's a new house on the old footprint. And that's what allowed us to get so close to this big tree, because it had grown up next to this foundation. Site analysis, there's 2 creeks. And here's that big kind of hill, and here's the sun path. And there's an existing driveway, which is super cool because it goes past the house and back to it. It doesn't go ramming into it, right? I forgot, these are scientists too. So we enjoy the scientists. These guys are both from Berkeley. She is a professor of sustainable cities, and Tim does sustainable fuels, and he did the first hydrogen fuel cell station in Berkeley. And so they came to us and said, we want a net zero house. First year, we have an energy bill that we use for competitions and or submitted for awards, and it used less energy than it made the first year. We had some screens designed for this space, but through value engineering and then the tree and other landscape, the client decided to wait and see if they were needed. Figure ground study. So we donated as much as we could of the house to Habitat. So the casework, the doors, anything that was easy. And then this was done on a pretty low budget. And we used fluid applied concrete instead of cast in place. And I'll show you why. There's the old chimney. We wrapped that in concrete and used it as a seismic anchor for the whole thing. So we didn't have to have a moment frame. But this is the first time we used fluid applied concrete. And the great thing about it is formwork is super lightweight. It's not all the intensive wood, right? So see that piece right there. It's one plane and it's spray applied. And so it adheres to the form and the steel, and it doesn't try and push out and blow the forms out. So you don't have to use so much wood. And then all of this formwork was repurposed in the framing of the house. There's the old fireplace. We used that to generate the floor level, and we kept that firebox. And I took this on site one day, and I was struck by the fact that the guys were doing the glazing, but it looked like they were climbing the tree. That was fun. Well, it's got a 4.5 kilowatt photovoltaic system, I think. A white roof. So the exterior is maintenance, very, very low maintenance and fire resistant. And then the interior is soft and warm and acoustically treated with rock wool behind the wood. So as you come along that driveway and you're entering around the house, when you first see it, it's very open and you can kind of associate with it. But then as you come around, it closes down to the west sun and privatizes the space. And then this is a super cool plate of 1/2-inch steel all by itself with no stiffeners on top. Some details of the rain screen. So water falls from here into this drain and into tanks, and it is used to flush toilets and do the laundry. And then the gray water is used for irrigation. This roof is about an R80 with all the insulation, a layer on top, and then the rock wool. And used. So in our work, we try very hard to make business or building size decisions on materials and form. So once we decide on the material, it kind of goes through the house. And it's not sort of, you know, what's your favorite color in this room type of discussion. And so this is oak to relate to the oak tree, but it's all oak. So this comes down the wall. This is acoustic as well. And then the floor is oak as well. And he plays the piano beautifully. We use slack. See this little slot right here? And the wood comes down. We use slack to maintain the width of the boards across the field so that you don't kind of have that cut board on the edge and it feels like ran out of space, right? Fun little detail thing. This little area right here, all solved on site, but you see there's no header here. There's a plate of 1-inch steel that wraps around right there, and then there's a rod in there that hangs this from the roof so that this could be light. And then this wall, the door and screen slide into it. And then in the jamb up here is the return air for the space. So this wall is super clean. And then these slots have adjustable light fixtures in them, but they also take pendants, which weren't installed at the time of the photographs. The stair is a screen, and it's built very simply out of apple plywood, doubled up. The mezzanine plan with the primary bedroom and an office upstairs. See the materiality comes through with you to all the spaces, including the bedrooms. The closeness of the tree thing cannot be understated. It's really odd to be that close, and I mean, you're watching the ants go up the tree every morning, right? Kitchen was treated like an insertion piece, and so this is all basically supposed to feel like casework. The materiality comes in with you, so the steel from outside comes in, makes the hood. The opening from outside comes in with you and makes a window over the range and highlights this horizontal limb. The tree. Oh, we're right on time. One project left. So this is a big house in Las Vegas. And for a firm that tries very hard to deal with the existing site, we were presented with no site. So this was destroyed by the developer and pad graded. But it has a view of the strip in this direction to the east and then to the west. If you know Las Vegas, Red Rock Canyon is quite beautiful. Look in the other direction. And we took this iron ore out of the mountain and brought it to the building. You'll see in a sec. So the process was really different, right? Because there's nothing to relate to except the distant landscape. And so we thought about this project in a very kind of internalized way. So we started with a 100-foot square that fit within the setbacks. And then we developed within that sort of this courtyard plan. And again, there may not have been trees, but there was wind and sun to deal with. And we had a strong direction and we knew where it was coming from. And that site analysis diagram. So it comes from the south and the west. And they are super strong. There's a party image coming up where the client had a 40th birthday party for the opening of the house, and literally the wind blew a tree down in the backyard during the party. These sketches. So the pool started out, pools are kind of required here, it's so hot, but it started out on the back side of the building in the wind. And after some research, we found that the wind is so strong that it'll pick up the pools and throw them into the house, basically. And so we developed this plan. Whoops. On this. We developed this plan with this kind of mass here to block the pool terrace from the wind and the sun. And so this is a ground form of concrete with one line that runs around this whole edge, and then a perforated steel box on top with the bedrooms in it for the children. They have 4 children. So here's the wind and the sun, and the pool is tucked in behind the building. There's that back area where one of the trees fell over. And these are 4 oak trees, which are native to Las Vegas in the wet areas, if you go into the creek areas and so forth. But those are designed to shield the house from the west sun. So that 100-foot square goes like this on the way up and over and down. And so it's a reductive design process. And we think about dimension and dimensional stability. And so when we can, we'll mirror things. So this space, the dimensions of the space are exactly the same as the pool. So when you're in it, you feel that kind of stability. The entrance, you move through a gate, it's still exterior space, and into a vertical courtyard with light above and a vertical garden right here. Primary bedroom here, and then downstairs, covered by grade, there's 2 family rooms, one for the adults and one for the kids. And the adults got this nifty below grade fire zone kind of behind this wall that hides them from the neighbors. Here's the pool, and here's that bedroom wing. This one has about a 35 kilowatt PV system. And then part of this portion cantilevers over to shield the cars from the sun. So the burying half the building allowed us to meet the design guidelines, which called for this structure to be a 1-story structure. How we sold this as a 1-story structure, I'm not sure, but somehow we did. But we hit about 50% of the plan underneath the building. So this is the kids' family room. And then there's 2 outside spaces that are actually ventilated with space through the decking, through the stair risers here. And the light comes through the sun. The west sun comes through here. And we only used 3 major materials, I think: concrete, steel, and oak. And the pool was elevated to protect the kids, but it became a much cooler thing than that because it became sort of a viewing platform for the city. And also, when you enter, as you arrive here, you're right at eye level with the water, which is a nice feeling because you're looking across that surface. But again, compositionally, this was all determined by being able to build this without a fence around it. So this meets the requirement of protection for the pool from the neighbors. And these screens all open and close depending on the sun. There's that vertical landscape element. These guys are from San Francisco, really good. That is neon art. So there's a opening in the roof here for the plants, and then this is a skylight at the same size over the stairwell, and it's fritted to cut the sun. So that's that view when you arrive at the gate before you go in, looking across the water, and structurally glazed doors on both sides open and telescope back into the mass of the building. This is actually the pool bath, that door opening. And so the doors disappear and this becomes a pavilion. And we worked hard to get the pool level flush with the edge. Dimensional stability, you can see here, this step is that height and it's just folded down. So this is the upper level with the bedrooms and the screens closed on one of those porches. And there's that. It is open. The party deck for the kids upstairs. These are all the bedrooms, and they come out here and they do their schoolwork out here. Biggest strip over there. So this is all perforated steel on the sides, obviously solid on the top. Use glass railings here, so that would not be an obstacle to your eye. Detail for the pool edge. And then our photographer, Joe Fletcher, who we've used the same photographer for every project, but he loves playing tricks, so that's the same bird. And this is that opening to below where the kind of the adult family room is downstairs.
It is.
So let's say 30 by 30, something like that. I'd have to think about it. The same size as the living space, whatever that is. So the material comes in with you. The steel comes in. This is a hidden door to the primary bedroom. So when that's closed, it just looks like another panel. Here's that perforated wood to below. The ceilings, we got away with murder on this one. First time we've ever completely gotten the lights out of the ceiling. So the overhead light really just feels harsh. And this is an acoustically treated ceiling. And then somehow we talked them into just using lamps for the lighting. Primary bedroom, again, the materiality is all the same. The tub is in the room with you. There's the doors opened. This is that line I was telling you about. Maintaining that line around the whole structure, exactly the same location, very difficult. And then these are the structurally glazed doors. And this is 1 inch, these frames, super small. And there's windows in the pool downstairs, let light in and just activate the spaces. So this is the 40th birthday party. Went down to the strip and hired some mermaids. That fire pit area outside the bar downstairs. I think that's Venus, I'm not sure. But you can see it's really open. When you open it, it connects the pool to this space. And this terrace is dropped exactly 30 inches. So the tabletop is the same as the deck level. And then the risers are open to allow air and light into those spaces. And then the sliding panels upstairs. So you can see the ceiling, super clean. And it's a totally different thing. If you can get the fixtures out of the ceilings, it becomes sort of, you know, like an instrument or the surface of a fine piece of carpentry instead of this collection of elements. And thank you.
Rocky photos, did y'all salvage the trees from the site and have them built, or did you?
No, I have tried to do that before, but not successfully. But it still was the driver for, it's the same material as the trees outside, but yeah, No. Zach, 7:30, that was pretty good, right?
Yeah, nice. We even talked about composition twice. So you mentioned Carlos Scarpa as an influence, which like from your drawing, so glad you said it, 'cause you really recall his sketching style a lot.
Mm,
How do you feel like his approach to design impacts you?
Space. So when you visit his work, it's almost like nothing touches anything. Everything is kind of floating. He uses space to reconcile details. And so, but he does it at every scale. It's not just details. So that along with the craft, I mean, the craftsmanship, and he had his own shop to machine all of the beautiful details and accessories and stuff. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Yes.
Park City, how long did it take you from the time you submitted to get approval on the historical?
We have our first meeting in like 2 weeks, so it's not approved yet. I don't think so. I hope not. We tried to be, good, good neighbors, and the shed form has references down the street, so it should fly.
Doing rust, staining the wood and the cement.
Good question. We worked hard on that detail to make sure the water didn't leach down the face of the concrete. It's a good point, though. Yeah.
Up in the Sierras where you're building, getting heavy snowpacks year after year. Roofs, but fairly thin, and how are you gonna handle that? Not much of a slope. How are you gonna handle that weight?
Well, the roofs aren't really thin, they're just thin at the edges. So we kind of stuff the framing inside the form and then bring the closure up along the side, so you don't sense it so much. But the flat roofs actually perform, there's no winning in the snow thing. If you have a sloped roof, it's gonna fall off the house and hurt things and stack up against the house, and it racks the house when one side dumps and the other side doesn't. And then many times ice dams form at the edges where the water is melted by the house from below, and then it runs to the edge and freezes, and then it starts to make a dam, and then it can cause leaks. So the slope roofs, unless you do a tower with a single pitch and somehow protect people from getting killed by the falling snow, the flat roofs work. And for years in Europe, they designed roofs to hold snow for insulation. And except for last year, we rarely have a problem with shoveling. But last year we had a 200% year. And we didn't know if it was going to go to 250. And so the engineers recommended we lighten the load a little bit on some of the thinner planes.
When that house built, it had that glass went down, and then the landscaping came down this way, and the snow would pack up against the glass, and the landscape was. Did the glass hold that much weight?
I don't know which image you're talking about, but
Yeah. It was
when
early
snow falls kind of on its own accord, it doesn't push against the house. The house melts it away. When a roof dumps snow, it'll hit the ground and it makes banks, and then it bounces into the house, and that is a problem. But as long as you're not letting snow kind of shed into the ground plane, it's fine.
I'm noticing that you're doing work all over. And I'm curious how you carry craft from one project to the next, where you're dealing with different craftspeople and different groups.
Here's good people, a lot of interviewing, and
But not the same,
no,
bring.
not always, yeah. And we actually also engage the craftspeople because they know stuff we don't know. And so we kind of bring them the idea, and then it's sort of a joint effort, so to speak. So the best craftsmen will work with us. They make suggestions for making it better. They let us know when we're making a mistake. So, but it's a lot in who you hire.
Can I ask when that happens? When you invite the craftspeople in?
Depends on the project, but we generally start in design development, identifying a builder, and we sign a pre-construction contract with them. And they help us not only manage costs, but also manage construction tech, so it's not out of line with the cost budget. So by the time we get to the end, it's not some surprise to it, yes.
Your hand drawings are fabulous. How long do you stay in that sort of sketch mode with flimsy and pencil and just kind of by yourself before you move into the digital age or the digital tool?
You know, it kind of lasts all the way through, but also the initial part, maybe a few weeks to a month.
Meeting with clients with the sketches like that.
And we'll show the sketches before we go into digital work, but we do use Revit, and we bring in kind of a digital analysis of the, site analysis or what have you, and it's just faster with a computer. But the actual modeling of the building, maybe a month into it, depends on the complexity of the project. Yeah.
Do you get involved in the design of furniture as well?
We have, and we do interiors as well, yeah. And if we don't do them, we hire a friendly interior designer that we have worked with so that there's continuity between the architecture and interior design. And again, it's we hire, yes.
You ever considered doing any kind of 3D printed structure?
I have. Yeah, we'd like to get into that. I know Lake Flato out of San Antonio did a really beautiful building. A lot of the folks try and 3D print the whole thing, which is a mistake. But they 3D printed kind of the ground form that extruded up and made closure, and then they built the roof out of wood. So it's more like a traditional house.
Question?
Sure.
I'm completely fascinated by that project with the boulder and the glass walkway. And I'm curious, when did you bring the benchmark master on board? It seems like it was pretty easy in the process, or did you have very details?
It was kind of an end of schematic design. It's kind of a check. Didn't too much, the circles, and then the house was so close to the street that you couldn't see who was there. And so he asked for he asked for a window, but I gave him a little slit.
Another question is, I'm curious, because you showed that AI image, which capacities are you using AI?
So far, just in renderings. But, I kind of think of it somewhat like a programmable calculator when they came out. It's kind of, it's a tool, and we'll probably use it once we get into it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Great job.